Okay.
All right, I think we did session 4, but it's an important session. The grammar in it is really basic stuff. And so I'd like to go over it one more time and repeat what I said the last time, which is please, all of the more than 50 people who are in our group, let's hear your questions. Let's hear some efforts to speak Seminole. That's what we're trying to achieve, is to keep the language alive and to use it. So don't be shy. And if you are shy, you can contact me separately, and I can go through anything you write and comment on it. All right, session 4 deals with 2 important words, we and se. Both of these words in English can be covered by the word that, but in Seminole grammar, they are quite distinct from each other. We means that or which or who in sentences such as the fish that I cooked, the book that I read, the man who I know, and so on. In that kind of a structure where the way refers to the word that's in front of it. So if I say the book which I read, the word which really means the book I've just said. The man whom I know, well, the who means the man. So it refers to whatever noun, and it's always a noun that goes in front of it. If you have your printout lessons in front of you, you can see these sentences. The fish we I cook, the fish that I cooked. And notice in the grammar, the verb alone with nothing around it, nothing in front of it, means the past tense. If it were English, in English, you would have to say the fish that I cooked, cook ed. There's no ed in Seminole. So you would say the fish where I cook. And that doesn't mean that I'm cooking now, because if you were doing it now, you would have to say the fish where I cook. Remember that means it's something happening. The book where I read yesterday, interesting. The book that I read yesterday is interesting. And a bit more grammar here. Interesting. In English, that's a straight adjective. It describes. But adjectives in Seminole are also verbs. So interesting doesn't just mean interesting, it means to be interesting. In English, you would need a be in front of it. The book that I read is interesting. In Seminole, you don't need the be because it's already part of the word. So you would say, if we say that using English pronunciation, the book that I read interesting. Now, if you can speak, what do they call it? AAVE, you know this abbreviation. It stands for African American Vernacular English, which is only something that academics use. People who actually can speak African American English, Black English, never call it that. But you know what I'm talking about. And if you already can speak Black English, you already would say the book interesting. So that will come naturally in your own private way of speaking. That girl who lives in bracket, Dara gal. And remember, Dara is another word. You could say Dagyal, but you could also say Dara gal. We live in bracket. That girl who lives in Bracketville. Okay, now that's all with the way. Se is, it's the word that goes in front of sentences that are inside sentences. So let's look at the examples and to clarify that. I think se Seminole sound nice. I think that Seminole sounds nice. So that those three words right there is a whole sentence. Seminole sounds nice. It's not a bit of a sentence, it's a whole sentence. And you can put the se in front of a sentence that's part of a longer sentence. It's inside. Linguists call it embedding, because it's one sentence embedded inside another sentence. Let's look at some more. Ano se Bombay demande back home. Ano se Bombay demande back home. Let's analyze that. I know that them and they back home. They, now en means future. De is the verb meaning to exist or physically be. So them and de means they will be back home. So I know that they will be back home. They will be back home is a sentence all by itself inside the longer sentence, right? Next one. Abi yedi se da bakra da tif. I heard that. Now, talked about this before. Bakra, in all the other sister Creoles of Seminole, only means either a white person or a Black person who acts like a white person. That's pretty much the universal meaning of Bakra. In Seminole, probably because of the isolation for so long, its meaning has shifted a little bit to mean anybody who is not a Seminole. So state race people are Bakras. Abiyedise, I heard that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
But not Mexicans, right? Mexicans are not Bakra, or they are?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, because there was a note in the book that I wanted to ask about, because I think it said non-Seminoles, but I'll find it.
I suspect that given the close association between Seminoles and Mexicans, you'll get a break.
Okay.
It's like, and maybe you can clarify this. I was told that in South Texas, even African Americans are gringos. Because they're not Mexican.
Right. We talked about this last time briefly, and my mom was actually watching the baby while I was in I was in the last lesson, and she overheard me, and we talked about it. Because growing up, a gringo is only white, and like, to my mom, like my mom would never call a Black American a gringo, because a gringo is a white person. in other parts of Mexico or Spanish-speaking US, gringo is anyone who isn't, like even I'm a gringo because I'm not from Mexico, you know?
Really?
Yeah, it varies, I think, by region and by context.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, but so Bakra in Seminole has this unique interpretation of anybody at all who is simply not a Seminole. Okay. Now, here comes a question.
Dr. Ian, I have one other question.
Sure.
Is state raised used very much in the Black Seminole community? Because I've heard Buckra a lot more and not really state raised, but are they used interchangeably?
I think state race has a different application.
Because state raised means Black people who are not Black Seminole, right?
Yes, but also, yeah.
But since Black people can be Buckras,
Well, they could be both, I guess.
yeah,
There's like an
Yeah.
overlap of state raised and
on that, yeah.
maybe, I don't
Okay.
know.
So it's just
I had-
interchangeable. Oh, no, I'm done.
I had another, because I was wondering about that too, Wendy, like how those were, if there was like a distinction. But I saw there were some examples too where, so like the fish way af the frying, or no, sorry, the fish way ad the fry is not the same as the fish way ad the frying, right?
I'm getting to that.
Okay, sorry, I'll let you go ahead because I had a lot of
Yeah,
questions about
no, that's very interesting, actually, that question, and I will get to it very soon. But Abiyeri da Bakra da Tif, this can mean two different things, and I'm gonna expand upon that too very shortly. I'll come back to that. But what I want you to look at right now is that se. It's a little word. You can translate it to mean that. But what it does is simply introduce a whole sentence inside a longer sentence. You can take your pencil and you can underline a complete sentence on the page. Anablib se speride. Anablib se speride. I don't believe that spirits exist. Notice spirit is singular or plural. There's no S on the end for plurals. That's English grammar. So if you want to know if something is singular or plural, you have to look at the context of the sentence. If I wanted to specify, if it were perhaps a little bit ambiguous, I would say, anablipse spirit dem de. And that dem after the noun definitely makes it plural. But you don't have to have it because the context of the conversation for the speaker and the hearer make it pretty clear what you mean. Ina true se kalina damichukla. Ina true se, it is not true that Carolina, the now meaning be, is nachukla. Chukla means sweetheart, male or female, just means sweetheart, lover, male or female. It doesn't just mean girlfriend or boyfriend, it's both. All right, now I want to see what's next here. All right, now coming back to Gabriel's comments and no, not Gabriel's yet. That's in the following lesson. But coming back to Abiyerise Dabakreda Tif, da in Seminole has a number of different meanings grammatically. The two that are important are, first of all, and think of them as two different words that happen to sound the same. It's not the same word doing two different things. It's two different words that sound the same. So da, number one, is the be verb. means is, am, are. So meet a teacher would mean I am a teacher. Duh. The other duh goes with verbs to show action going on or habitually going on. So either cook would mean I am cooking, right? So we've got two different meanings for the same sounding word. So going back to Abiyedise Dabakra Datif, that could either mean I heard that Bakra is a thief, Datif, be a thief, or it could be the marker for a verb in progress. So it could mean I heard that Bakra is stealing. Now, why this is ambiguous is because tif is a noun and a verb. It can mean a thief, but it also means to steal. So meet a thief, if I say meet or add a thief, meet a thief, it could mean I am a thief or I am stealing. Okay. And if you want to disambiguate that, you can say those things in different ways. You could say Abiyedise da Bakra da Tifman. Tifman is another way for saying he is a thief. He's a Tifman, a thief man. Or you could say da Bakra da one thief. That man is one thief, one hell of a thief. So either way, you can clarify what you're trying to say. Okay, a little break now to deal with some of the history of the language. And I'm saying here something I touched on some time ago. Let me repeat it. We have to look at the history of Creole languages overall. Remember, Seminole, Afro-Seminole is one of a whole range of different English lexifier Creoles. And that simply means lexicon, vocabulary. It just means that the words come from English, mostly, not all. Nothing else comes from English, not grammar, but words. And that's why we say English lexifier. And all of the English lexifier Creoles in the Caribbean, Jamaican, Trinidadian, all of those are all closely related. Gullah, of course, on the East Coast is most closely related. But over in Africa, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Nigeria, all sister languages to Seminole. So when we look at the history of this group of languages, we have to go back to the very beginning to explain where do they come from? Why do they exist in the first place? If there's already English, why aren't people just speaking English? Well, it's a complicated and painful history. But let's go back to the first contact between English speakers and Africans. We have to take it back to Africa. When the first ships from Europe arrived in Africa back in the 1400s, and if we go back even earlier, we can go back to Hanno the Greek, who visited Africa. But let's move it into recordable history. We can go back to the 1400s, and we've got the Portuguese, and then Spanish and Dutch and French and English, all staking claims on Africa for what Africa had to make Europe rich, including, besides ivory and gold, people. Anything to make a profit that would go back in the triangle trade that they teach you about in school, or if they don't, they should. Ships from Europe go down to Africa, pick up stuff, take it across to America, change it into money, take that money straight back to Europe. Big triangle. Now, the first ships consisted of anybody they could get to make those ocean voyages, which were very difficult, very unhealthy. And in order to find crews for those ships, sometimes they would go to the jails, the prisons, and tell people, you can stay here and rot, or you can become a sailor on a ship. And of course, a lot of them did. Or they would press people into service. What they would do was get people drunk in the taverns, in the harbor cities, and they'd wake up and find themselves out at sea, no choice. And they came from all over. And let's stick with Britain because we're talking about English lexifier Creoles. The same scenario exists for the French lexifier, like Haitian, for example, or Louisiana Creole. But let's stick with the English one. So the sailors would be from all over Britain, speaking all different kinds of English, different regional dialects of English. And they didn't go to school. They didn't travel much. So the way they spoke in their part of Britain was very local and very different from English in other parts of Britain. And we know for a fact that somebody from the north could not understand somebody from the south. They're both speaking English. It's so different that they couldn't understand each other. And in fact, when the Bible was translated, first of all, in the Middle Ages, it had to be translated in two different kinds of English for English people. So when these sailors, whether they were voluntary or not, found themselves all together on the ships, they had to work out a way to talk to each other. They picked on words they all knew, kept those. Any words they didn't know, either they got rid of them or everybody learned them. Either way, they kind of leveled out something that we refer to linguistically as ship English, the way sailors talk or talked back then. We're going back 400 years, 500 years. There were no women, all men. When these ships arrived on the West African coast for English speakers in the 1500s, a lot of them did not want to go back to England. Life on board ship was horrible. Life back in prison was horrible. They jumped ship. They mutinied. They were, what do you call them? They were runaways. They were all looking, most of them looking for women. And the women were African women, the only women available, none of whom spoke a word of English, and none of the sailors spoke a word of any of the African languages. So something happens here. The African women were much better at learning a new language than the Europeans were, because they lived in a multilingual situation, and it's not unusual for Africans to know more than their own language. That's commonly true today. We know that if you are bilingual before puberty, learning another language comes way more easily than if you are not bilingual before puberty. So first of all, it was easier for the African women to learn the ship English of the whites, who had to continue speaking ship English even on shore because they were still together, than it was for those white sailors to learn the local African language. Secondly, we're looking at male dominant societies for the most part, where it was expected for the women to learn the men's language rather than the reverse. So what came out of that was a kind of English that we have very little record of, but we refer to it as coast English. It was sort of a new English that emerged on the coast of West Africa as a result of the unions, domestic unions between white sailors and their African wives. The wives, of course, pronounced the English words with an accent because it wasn't their native language. And the Coast English started to pick up lots of words for which there was no English equivalent, particularly for animals and vegetables and fruits and customs that were African. There was no word for a mango or a cola nut or a parrot. You know the word, you know the pet word for a parrot is Polly parrot, right? Well, there's no parrots in Europe. It's not native to Europe, but it is the Sierra Leonean Timony word for a parrot, and that got picked up, right? Okra, right? Okra didn't grow in Europe. It's an African vegetable. It's an African word. So these words joined into the Coast English. But what I'm getting to now is that the ship English and subsequently the Coast English had words in it from all over the British Isles, all different dialects of English spoken across Britain. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How that hooks into Creole, very briefly, it was the Coast English that became the resource for the words in the Creole that subsequently emerged later on.
I have a quick question, if related to that history, if I can ask it now.
Sure.
I was really interested in reading in the lesson about the Lasandus. Is that how you pronounce it?
What is it? Say it again.
The Lasandus, the men that stayed.
Lanzados.
Okay. Yeah, lanzados would be in Spanish, right? But in Portuguese.
Yeah, but it got it. Well, in Portuguese and Spanish, it's the same word.
Oh, okay.
It's from lanzar.
Lanzar, yeah.
To throw, like a lance.
Right, like se lanzaron.
Yeah, well, the lançados, that's the word we now use.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Portuguese word because they were there first.
Right.
But the English equivalent, they just took the Portuguese word, but it means thrown. And these were the people who were figuratively thrown from the ships and left on the African coast. Right?
What happened to their descendants? Did they get sort of like absorbed into the larger African?
Well, the first generation were Afro-European, right? They were half
Right.
black, half white, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
But they're
the word for them back then was malata, which in English is mulatto. A mulatto person, although that word is, I think, a little bit tainted now, I'm not sure. But it meant 50-50, half black, half white, right? Now, because the social climate changed on the coast over time, the white input into West African society diminished. Whites were no longer as welcome as they were to start with, mostly because of the slave trade, which meant that there was not an ongoing influx of white, let's call it white blood, into these mulatto communities. So over time, the marriage choices tilted heavily on the African side. So now, if you go to West Africa, you go to Sierra Leone, and you see people who descend from this, the white bit is really quite tiny and dates from the 1600s and 1700s. And it's been bred out by intermarriage with Africans since that time. But we're talking about back then, not now.
Yeah, I guess that was my question, and you answered it. Is like if there's sort of like if there's still an ethnic identity or like a sort of any sense of among the descendants of those early unions, if there's still like a separate sense of like of being like a separate ethnicity or of being, or if they just sort of.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it has become sharply political.
Okay.
And if Amadou were on here, I would get him to say a few things. You know, my favorite expression, my name's Bennett.
Bennett, and I ain't in it, right?
And I ain't in it.
What?
I do not want to get into
Right. Okay.
politics.
Right.
And if you're interested in identity politics, maybe Wendy can head up a discussion about the difference between a Black Seminole and a Black Creek, but I'm not going there. In the main, and the people we're talking about are called Creoles. In Sierra Leone, they are Creoles, and in Guinea, right next door, they are Creoles, except they're Portuguese lexifier. But they are not tribal Africans.
Okay, that's what I was, yeah, that's what.
Wow, okay.
They are not tribal Africans, and there is, of course, this situation, ongoing situation, where people of tribal heritage, background, have become de-tribalized, de-ethnicized, and have become urbanized, and to all intents and purposes have become Creole.
Right.
They don't speak their grandparents' language. They don't present themselves by tribe. It's very complicated, and I'm going to leave that alone because I'm not.
Yeah, it's very interesting though.
Yeah, it sounds very complex. Thanks for taking the time to answer that.
Yeah. And we're going to get out. We're going to corner Amadou to talk about this. Anyway, coming back to the lesson, I'm looking at some of the words from different dialects. And why this is important is because teachers, one reason that Seminole has been so secret is very largely because the speakers themselves were embarrassed about it, because the teachers would comment on it and say, you're not speaking English properly. What kind of nonsense are you speaking there? Learn to speak properly, da, 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 da. My argument there is, coming back to this question of lexifier, languages that provide words to another language. If we were to look at English today has more French words than English words. If you do a word count in Webster's or the Oxford Dictionary, fewer than 30% of the words in an English dictionary are in fact English. There are more words from French. Now, is English bad French? First of all, because there's so much French? No. These kind of judgments are purely based in control and who has the last word about what's right and what's not right. If we look at the words in Seminole, they are not messed up English words. They are the original words that the first Africans ever heard in the native English of the Lanzados, the whites who settled permanently on the coast with African wives and raised Afro-European families. And here are some examples. Words such of the, well, first of all, from the southwest part of England, and if you had a map in front of you, you could see this, but you have to look at which cities are on the coast. Almost every British city is on the coast or near the coast because it's an island nation. It's got to be close to the sea. So you look at Liverpool, Bristol, these big cities. London is on the River Thames, straight out to the ocean. Portsmouth, Plymouth, it's all on the coast. And so the sailors were recruited from those parts of Britain where the ships could recruit crew. So if we look at the southwest, where Bristol is, and Southampton, and major maritime cities, and in the dialects of English still spoken, if you go there today, you'll hear these. Ere meaning any, is Seminole, but it's also, in some parts of this country, it's local English as well. They pronounce it airy. I ain't see airy people there. It's ere. And then the negative of that is nere, which is nary, something. You know the word. Weekade. Book English, and this is where I make that distinct. If I want to talk about world English, I call it book English. I don't call it standard English. No such thing. But the language, the kind of English you learn if you want to be a world traveler, an international diplomat, what is taught in college out of books is book English. And book English calls it weekday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are weekdays. But in Creole and in Seminole, it's weekday. But also in Devonshire, Somerset, Cornwall, all down in the southwest. Left me, meaning leave me alone. I've been left amde. I left it there. I lefonde, I will leave it there. Left means leave. Broke, broke means break. You don't broke up. Well, that's okay in book English too. You broke it. But I am broke up. I will break it. I am broke up in Seminole. So it's just broke, nothing else, just broke. Loss for lose. Na lossam. Tikia na lossam. Tikia means be careful, take care. Tikia na lossam. Be careful that you don't lose it. Okay? Tikia na lossam. Enti. Enti is a tag, and it probably comes from ain't it, but you can translate it as isn't it, wasn't it, aren't they? And you can tag it in Seminole if you are expecting a reply. So if you're eating something tasty, you could say is sweet. Now, sweet in Seminole doesn't just mean sugary, it just means tasty. So it could be, I don't know, pepper sauce or something peppery, spicy, and you could say, is sweet, auntie? Or you could say, auntie is sweet. Just, isn't it? You're just waiting for somebody to say, sure is, sure enough. Swinge. Swinge is what you do when you are going to cook a chicken and you have to pull off the feathers off, pluck in the chicken. But before you do that, you hold the dead, I hope, a dead chicken over the fire to burn off the feathers before you do that. And that's called swinge. And I suppose in book English, it's singe, like he singed his hair, but it's swinge with a W. Woman. Woman is a woman, but woman is not only still heard in the southwest of England, it's what Shakespeare would have said. Yeti. Yeti means here, and that is specifically a southwestern word. Longa. Longa means with. That is shortened down from along of. I went along of my friend, along with my friend. But longa just means with. I go along him. I went with him. You wouldn't say longa am. You'd use the definite, the emphatic for him. And I'll talk about emphatics in a later lesson. All right, all of those are from the Southwest. Now, when we look at the middle part of England, we get a bunch of other words, which you'll still hear. Kibba. Kibba is from cover. If you went to Yorkshire, they wouldn't say kibba, they would say kiva with a v. But they wouldn't say cover, they'd say kiva. And in Seminole, it's kibba. Dreen. Dreen is to drain, or drain off the water. Drain off the water, right? Drain off the water. Lily, for little. Lily bit. Lily. Wrench. No, these, yeah, and wrench. Wrench means to rinse something or squeeze. If you got a towel or a cloth full of water and you want to squeeze all the water out, you can wrench it in your hands. And those are all from the middle part of England. And if we move up to Scotland, where a whole lot of sailors came from, we get worm. Worm is a worm. Worm. Greta. Greta is to grate something, like you're grating, I don't know, potatoes or something, but you don't grate it, you grater them. Snoot is a snout, like the pig's snoot. And I don't know if you know the word. Is this used in this country? Somebody who's really stuck up is snooty. You know that? Well,
Yeah,
yeah, it's actually snouty because their snouts are up in the air, but it's snoot. But that's a Scottish way of saying snout. Bresh, bresh for a brush, to brush your hair, you bresh them. All right, so those are just a few examples. The point being that they are not changed. Well, one example, kibba instead of kiva, with a B instead of a V. But for the most part, these are not changed at all. They're exactly what the Africans heard the first time they heard English speakers. Okay. Okay. Here is a little story now. We may run over. Wendy, have we got time to run over by a few minutes?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So this is a folk tale. And it's a bit long, so I've divided it into two, and we'll do the second part a month from now. But this story, and do you all have it in front of you? Because you really should, otherwise, okay, good. It's called The Two Tira and the Poon. The two sisters. Now, Tita can mean sister, but it can also mean a little girl. The two Tita and the Poon. The two sisters and the spoon. One day, one old granny been day, we send one illegal child for go to the river for washing dirty pan and pool. All right, one day, an old granny. Remember, one is the equivalent of a or an, indefinite. Binde was there, existed, there was an old granny. One day there was an old granny where he sent one illegal child to go to the river, who, there's that way, send one of his little, her little grandchildren, or a gal child would be female grandchild, granddaughter. For. Now, for, remember, is the before verbs means to. So for go means to go. To the river, for washi dirty pan and poon, in order to wash her, is her, it's dirty pan and poon. So the old grandmother sent her granddaughter to the river to wash her dirty pan, dish, and spoon. Time had come back. By the time that she came back, the gal realized, say, the girl realized, say, right? We're looking for says and ways in this. He been left the poon behind, but it been too faith for say. She, okay. By the time she came back, the girl realized, say, she had left the spoon behind, but it been too faith for say. But she was too afraid to say. She's scared of the granny. Evening come. Evening came. And then sit down the table for eat. And they sat down at the. Now, this is another meaning of the. We've had two already today. A third one is a preposition in, at, on, simply the. So the table means at table or at the table. For eat, to eat. So evening came and they were sitting at the table to eat. The old granny done ready for serve up the rice, but he can't find it in poon. The old grandmother done ready. I mean, she had become ready, was now ready to serve up the rice, to serve up the rice, but he can't find it with poon, but she cannot find her big spoon. Now, these big spoons were carved especially out of wood. They weren't metal. They were big wooden spoons for big servings of stuff. You can't find a big spoon. Inasium anyway. She not see it anywhere. You see, she said, yeah, auntie. There's that auntie again, isn't it? I've been sent Hannah. I sent you to go wash my serving spoon, to go and wash our serving spoon. Remember, we is we, us, our. We say de. What does that mean? Where is it? We say e de. Where's it at? You left them to the river. There's that preposition de again. You left it at the river. You best go bring them back for I whoop you good. You better go and bring it back before I really whoop you. The gal go back to the river, but he can't find the food. He goes back to the river, but she cannot find the spoon. Now, can is one of these verbs that has its own negative. Mostly with verbs, you just put na in front. But kin has its negative can and cannot. It terrified to go home. She is scared, terrified to go home. So he dares to sit down next to river to cry. He terrified to go home. She's scared to go home. So he dares to sit down next to river to cry. So he just keeps saying he for she. This Seminole's messing up my English. So she just, this is just, the sit down is sitting down next to river to cry. She's just sitting down next to the river crying. Bambai. Now, Bambai, I think we had it once already today. It means soon. Bambai. One old woman passed by and he see him to cry. An old lady passed by and she saw her crying. He asked him, she asked her, make Hannah to cry, me daughter. Now, mek by itself means why, but it's a shortening of the wa mek. It is what makes you be crying. Mek Hannah to cry. The wa mek Hannah to cry. What is it makes you be crying, me daughter? And you know that kinship, not just kinship terms, but respect terms in Creole society and in African American society. You call people with kinship terms, even when they're not blood marriage. It's the same in my Romani culture. The Romani people, the young ones, call me Kakoyanko, which means uncle Ian. I'm not their uncle, but I'm older than they are. So even though she's not the daughter of this old lady, she will still call her my daughter. And she will call the old lady auntie, even if she's not a blood relative. It's just polite. Okay. He asks him, "Me kinda to cry me daughter." The gal tell him say, the girl told her that he lost one spoon. She lost a spoon. We've been post for wash, and he feared for going without him, which she was, and there's the way. So in this sentence, we got to say and away. The gal tell him say he lost one spoon way. He been post for wash that she was supposed to have washed, and he feared for go home without her, and she is afraid to go home without it. The old woman tell us say he can help him, but first if a crabby dirty foot then. The old woman told her that he can help her. She can help her, but first if a crabby dirty foot. But first she must scrub her dirty feet. The dirty foot then. Put them feet. Good and clean. The gal agreed. The girl agreed. When he done for clean the old woman's foot, when she had done with washing the old lady's feet, the old woman tell him for go along the river some more. The old woman told her that, when the old woman told her to go along the river some more, and here meet up now, and meet up. E is she, N is the future. She will meet up with one next old woman, with the next old woman or another old woman, where he can help her, which she could help her. The so he do. It is so she did. That she did. When he meet the second old woman, he tell him how the first old woman did tell him how he could have helped him. When she met the second old woman, she told her, he tell him how the first old woman, how the first old lady didn't tell him, told her how he could have helped him, how she could have helped her to find the spoon, to find the spoon. And if he please could help her, and if she could please help her, please could she help her? The old woman tell him say yes, he could have helped her. The old lady told her yes, she could have helped her. But before he helped him, but before she helped her, if a crutch the mosquito bite, with they all over his back. First, she must scratch the mosquito bites, which are all over his back, which are all over her back. The gal scratch 'em till the woman satisfied. The girl scratched and scratched, and this is very common in Seminole and in other Creoles. To emphasize something, you just repeat it. You scratch 'em till the old woman satisfied. Then the woman tell him say, then the woman told her that if a pass on down the river bank till we meet up along one next old lady, there the old lady will I will help him for sure. Until the woman was satisfied, then the woman told her that she should pass on down the riverbank until she meets up with, there's that long, longer with a next old lady. And that there old lady, Darade old lady, we're able to help them for sure. That old lady is going to help her for sure. So it's a little complicated because now we've got 3 old ladies involved in helping this daughter. And you're going to have to wait till next month to find the thrilling outcome of this story. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a general grammar question.
Yeah.
That I've been wondering about. So the use of dem after a word to make it plural, does it be used in conjunction with duh before it? Or are there examples where you could just say like, I don't know why I'm blanking. I was thinking of examples, but like Anna bin Shem dakuta dem. Like I didn't see the turtles, right? Could you just say Anna bin Shem kuta dem? Like I didn't see turtles? Or would it have to be like Anna bin Shem ere kuta dem? I guess what I'm asking is if you can use dem without duh.
Well, you're mixing a few tenses there. Shem means
To see.
saw it.
Oh, it's only in the past?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you say Ana Shem, it's a lovely cat.
Name's Takwache. He's horrible.
Let me sort this out. Shem means see it or saw it.
Okay.
So you couldn't say saw it, the kutas.
Right.
You'd have to say even see the kuta them.
Okay.
She saw the turtles.
Mhm.
Or you could say Anashem, I don't see it, or I didn't see it. But you can't have Shem because the M part is
Got it. Okay.
So you can't have another noun after an You couldn't say
Okay.
Anabin Shem Dikuta dem. You'd either say Anabin Si Dikuta dem or Anashem. All right.
Okay. So, and yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know Shem was specifically for the past tense, but that makes a lot of sense.
It's not. Shem is really a combination of see,
Okay.
see, it, him, her, it, them. You could say see 'em, but nobody does. I've been see 'em,
Right.
but you wouldn't say I've been see 'em kuta. Just say I've been see the kuta.
So could you say like I want book dem? Like I
Yeah.
want books. Or would you have to say I want the book dem?
Yeah, you could say that too.
Either one works.
Well, if you say I want to book them,
It's just those specific books.
books you're actually looking at. If you
Right.
say I want to book them, it's like you don't have any books and you're not
Right.
going to move until you get books.
You just want books. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. If you could use it without the duh.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's really helpful.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Yes. I have a suggestion. I think it'll be very helpful, but it'll probably take about a minute and a half. Do you have that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In the 70s, I was a nightclub promoter in Los Angeles, and I had to promote the night that people didn't want to come out. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I made them look like Friday. I always found to get people involved and it's group participation, a sense of they're gonna be involved. You talked about your questionnaire. What I would do, I would set up 3 little play vignettes where one person is speaking to another person at one level, the second level, the third level, and I would put this on that questionnaire. I wouldn't ask them, are you still interested? I say, which one of these little plays do you want to participate in? And remember, it's going to be demonstrated before you do by, you know, Doc Ian and Miss Goodlow. And sorry, I spoke about the 70s, which that's 30 years before she was even born. But anyway, how can you involve the people? And when they think, well, I got to participate in this little greeting or this little at lunch, very simple, just to get it going. Participation, expectation of needing to participate.
No, that's a great idea.
It's a great idea. It would work if we had more of the 53
Yeah.
face-to-face on these sessions.
Well, if it works, then go ahead, even if you have to do it with whoever shows up. And eventually, I believe it will catch on, and because it's almost like a performance art. They see something they need to be expected to be a part
I
of.
want to be a part of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And I was born in the 70s, so.
Oh,
You're just a baby.
no,
Wait, Wendy, how old are, well, never mind.
No, I'm 42.
I always thought you and I were the same. I always thought you and I were like the same age.
How old are you?
I'm
You're-
33.
Okay, I thought you were in your 20s. Okay, so you're 33.
No, I get that. I get early 20s a lot, but
Yeah.
but I thought you were my age or younger.
Aw,
Yeah, but
thank
I
you.
thought you were 22.
I'm
I'm
only 42.
I want to hug you, Mr. Fixico.
Yeah, well, hey, electronically, I'll accept it. I'm 74, but I don't look a day over 73.
I'm only 39.
I believe it. Now, I do have a grammar question.
All right.
The thing that kind of stumped me is it's 3 words, and, Gwen, and Gwine.
Oh, yeah.
Are they used interchangeably?
I
Okay.
think in the next lesson, I talk about variability.
Okay.
And I make the point, I'll do this again next month, but it's worth saying now. You don't, when you speak, when you learn all of this, keep in mind that if you speak according to the rules of the grammar in the grammar book, nobody talks like that in real life.
True. Yeah.
You can say, I don't have any, or you can say, I haven't got any. And you probably use both at different times. And it's the same in Seminole. And sometimes you could say, I am good, or you could say, aguen good. Neither one is right or wrong. They're just variations of the same. And it's perfectly natural in any language to, do you say either? Do you say either?
Yeah.
We don't speak the same every time we speak. And it's the same in Seminole. But I do make the point in that next lesson that the closer you can get to the very conservative kind of Seminole, the kind that is as least like English as you can get, then the easier it is to keep it separate from English. The more Englishy sounding it gets, it begins to sound like English. And you
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So keep it like the old grannies used to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Now, one other thing, and I told you that I wanted to learn enough to do blues and saying in Afro-Seminole Creole. Now, if I play, now can you tell me one sentence, one little short sentence?
Yeah, now somebody, what was his name? I have his LP, a blues singer, and I will send you the name, Fix.
No. I want you to tell me a sentence in ASC.
Yeah, but I want to give you an example of a blues song called Adagode. Adagode.
Yeah, but I want you to say this now because I'm gonna play a little blues and then I want you to sing it so we can see. So here. Take it.
Well,
Sing.
you could say the.
No, you sing it.
I ain't gonna sing.
No, you gotta sing it, guys.
You could say the blues then destroy my soul.
Next line.
Anano wisai for go.
Final ended.
Me woman done left me. And the last line left to Gabrielle.
That's what I wanted to see, that natural smile on your face. We got you, Doc in. This is history. We got him singing the blues. Now that'll make them all come in. Do you really want to pack this house?
If you've been recording me, lawsuit day by your table.
Uh-oh, it's being recorded.
Did we get it?
Do we want a lawsuit?
Yeah, you ain't gonna get nothing but practice if you sue me. Nothing but practice. So go ahead. Get your lawyer. Yeah.
Victor, I'm glad to say you did it. You did a long week. And I'll see you all a month from now. And Wendy, I'll see you a week from now.
Exactly. Looking forward to it.
All right.
I see you later.
Hey guys, I missed the class.
How
How did
I
that
do?
happen?
Amadou, we say you've been there. We
Did you
say
just
you've been
come on?
there.
Wait a minute now. What time is it now? It's 6:18. Oh my goodness.
Are you in Dallas or in?
I am in Dallas, and I already reached out to Windy saying it's 5 p.m. Central. Oh man.
Okay. I got you into trouble while you were not here.
Okay.
And while I go and fix myself another little something, I want you to explain to the great crowds amassed here about the politics of ethnic identity, Creole versus indigenous in Sierra Leone. And I'll be right back. I dropped you in the.
Creole versus indigenous in Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the first things that comes to mind is that I know there is some controversy over a piece of land that was purchased by the Brits on behalf of these diaspora returnees who ended up being named as Creoles of Sierra Leone. And whilst these guys were there were some issues. Some of them had to do with the distinction between those returning who have been westernized, so to speak, and those who they met at home who were more remotely inclined, if you will. So there have been issues along those lines over the past, just like we have a black and white thing here. So we have a Creole and all natives kind of thingy. I mentioned the land purchase. Up till today, there is controversy over, whether those Creoles actually purchased the land or it was leased to them. Sometimes these discussions get very heated amongst us Sierra Leoneans around this. Over the years, though, there has been an assimilation process where things are not as rigid as they used to be, but it still does exist. Similar to,
Amadou.
yes,
Say
yes.
say something about Ture Dontong Kuka.
Okay. So what that speaks to, Ture, which was a native name for, I mean, it is a native name. And now they've changed their name from Ture to Coca. This is how this could happen or could have happened.
Okay, Creole name.
Coca is a Creole name, that's right. So some of these Creoles that lived in Freetown used to take on, we call them houseboys or men pikin. Men pikin, how would you say that in ASC? Well, basically, it was someone that was not your child, but that's going to be a helper in your home. Like they would do stuff for you and your children. However, you would, shelter them, clothe them, and feed them. So this native guy who was named Amadou Touré would eventually become Michael Coca. He would have changed his name. And there are many people today who refer to themselves as Creoles that sort of assimilated into Creole culture from being native. However, the reverse is rarely heard of, but there was a great man named Lamina Sanko. He changed his Creole name to a native name. A popular guy too, I mean, he was an activist and something that probably Professor Hancock knows more about Lamina Sanko, but he's one of the few guys who at a very long time ago, when this thing was really heated, he did the reverse. He took a native name and gave up his, English name or Creole name.
And you find that in this country too, with African Americans adopting African names. It's very common.
Yes, that is true, especially today, more so than ever.
What is interesting, Amadou, if you look at the history of Sierra Leone and you look at the settler population who started to come in the late 1700s, you have Nova Scotians and Blackfoot and Jamaicans. Altogether, they did not amount to more than 2,000 people, right?
Huh?
But following that, the liberated Africans who were also joining the Freetown community until well into the 1800s outnumbered those 2,000 original settlers 50 times. So tribal Africans contributed to the Creole society 50 times more than the Nova Scotians and Maroons.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why you guys can't see me. I turned my camera on, but for some reason, I can't see myself.
What are you trying to hide?
Nothing really. But I have a question with regard to the overall class stuff. I mean, in terms of getting people to our classes, how what is our thoughts on that? What are our thoughts on that?
Mindy?
Yeah, that's what we were discussing at the beginning of class, is how to get more people involved. I send out the email to a group of 53 people, yet I think less than 10% are on the call. So that's what we were discussing earlier. And Mr. Fixico did just give us some pretty good ideas on how to go about getting more people interested as well, which you missed, Amadou. I don't know if we're allowed to show you the recording though.
That's all right. That's all right. At least we talked about it.
Yeah.
Amadou, you can watch this, right? You can watch the whole hour that you missed.
No, well, yeah, the link, right?
Yeah, I put the link up in in the Facebook group that we have. So I'll do that after this.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, what we were saying is, I know that there are people who are watching the recording afterward, but we definitely want more people to be a part of the live, you know, because nobody is just learning this on their own. I don't know if it's possible to really even learn this completely isolated and on your own. You do have to be in a participatory class. And I definitely haven't heard of anybody just taking the dictionary and feeling confident enough to speak, you know. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question for Professor Masala. Have you heard of the Mbala people in Africa?
Mbala? No,
Yes.
I have not.
And what about you, Doc Ian? Have you heard of the Mbala people in Africa?
Yeah, that's a Bantu people, not a West African people.
Do you know what song they brought to Mexico, to Veracruz?
I believe so. But,
Here it is. They brought that. That's in the Mexican. That's a jarocho. It's in the jarocho. It's in the, yeah, the song. You know, you heard that song I was playing, right? I was playing it for you because most people from Mexico, they feel that song, La Bamba, that we call, actually came from Mexico, but there is evidence that it was brought to Veracruz by the Mbala people.
Oh, wow.
And there's versions that talk where the lyrics are about enslaved people escaping the plantations, or that vaguely refer to it. So there's like, it has a much more complicated history than but yeah, it's completely African.
Wow. I thought it was La Bamba, so yeah.
If you're a musician, oh, I'm learning it.
Gabriel, what does Bamba mean by itself?
It doesn't mean anything in Spanish.
Because it could mean something in Creole.
Is that, there's a story, I'll save this question for next time, but there's a story that, I'm not sure if I'm reading it correctly in the Bracketville book, but if I am, it's very interesting.
Bamba means to carry something on your back.
Yeah,
right.
Like a baby most times, a young child. Bamba.
Yeah, Bamba na back.
But
I was gonna, go ahead.
I was gonna say we drifted away from my question, thanks to the guy who plays the harmonica over there.
I'm sorry about that, Professor.
What I was saying, okay, so I guess we got ideas with regard to how we can increase participation. One thing that we may consider perhaps is to have at least one session, Dr. Hancock. I don't know how this fits in, but can we have one session where we can have some Gola speakers in a class? Would that work? I mean,
Dan de depend you.
He's saying that's on me.
Yeah.
You guys get that?
Yes.
I think Doc Ian singing the blues will do it. Doc Ian singing the blues.
Yeah, he had me singing the blues.
Yeah.
I'm feeling far from blue right now.
Yeah.
Wendy, there was I think she's black. She's a Black Seminole descendant from Oklahoma. Is it Anastasia?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think she had sent an email in response once about trying to get more people in the Oklahoma community involved, but I don't know if that's something that's.
Yeah, I need to get back in touch with her because she is trying to start a revitalization there. And yeah, I haven't spoken with her in a couple of months because she had missed, I think, the first session and she was the one who said, please record it so that I can watch it later. But yeah, the Oklahoma folks are just as important too, because they are, you know, part of this history and wanting to learn. But no, I need to just, yeah, I'll send her an email just to see how she's doing.
But it's also the case that we need to get the Gullah folks involved as well. And we
Yep.
have, what's her name, Amadou?
Victoria Smalls, my good friend.
Yes, yeah,
She is on our list,
she is.
but we hear nothing. And what's her name, Pittman up there in Oklahoma?
Anastasia Pittman. Mhm.
Yeah, Stacia, we don't hear from her. It's not enough just to get your name on a list. You have to participate.
Yeah, yeah.
If-
And I think it would be good to just, you know, send out some emails again, just to everybody. Hey, you know, we're
let
here.
us- We're not recording right now, right?
Oh, well, let me stop.
We are.
Hold on.
Well, let me suggest